My sister Natalie's kick hit my son's stroller so hard. The 8-month-old baby was thrown against the safety bar. His cry turned into a scream of pain that echoed through my parents' living room. Maybe now he'll learn to sit still, Natalie said casually. She adjusted her designer blouse as if she had just stepped on a dry leaf in the garden. My father laughed dryly from the leather armchair where he was watching the game. Well done. This generation of kids is too spoiled. My mother didn't even look up from her interior design magazine. Evan has always been too soft. The boy needs some real discipline. As I bent down to pick up my son, Noah, who was now crying desperately with a red mark on his little arm, I felt the blood boil in my veins. But I kept my expression neutral, controlled. My name is Evan, and at 32 years old, I just witnessed my own family physically assault my baby because he cried during Sunday lunch. What they didn't know was that there was a security system recording every second. Growing up as the problem child in the Bennett family taught me many valuable lessons. Natalie was always the golden girl. Columbia Law School, married to a plastic surgeon, living in a magazine-worthy penthouse in Manhattan. I was just the computer tech who lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, raising a son on my own after my ex-wife left me. The family dynamic had been set since we were kids. Natalie could do anything and be defended. I could be perfect and still be criticized. When she broke the neighbor's window at age 10, my parents said it was an accident. When I got an A in math, they said I should work harder in English. Today was no different. We arrived for the mandatory monthly lunch, and Noah started crying because he was hungry. Instead of understanding that babies cry, it's literally how they communicate basic needs, my family treated it as if it were a personal attack on their comfort. Can't you make him stop? Natalie had asked with growing irritation as she cut her grilled salmon. He's hungry, I explained patiently, preparing the bottle. He'll be fine in a few minutes. In my day, children knew how to behave in public, my father grumbled. That's when Natalie got up from the table. I thought she was going to the bathroom or maybe stepping out to take an important call. She always made a point of showing how busy she was at her law firm where she was a partner. Instead, she walked straight over to the stroller where Noah was lying and without warning kicked the side hard enough to move the entire stroller. The silence that followed my son's scream lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then came the collective approval of my family, as if she had done something necessary and courageous. Finally, someone with a firm hand, my mother commented, returning to her magazine. I picked Noah up, checking to see if he was hurt beyond the red mark that was already beginning to appear on his little arm. His little blue eyes looked at me with that total trust that babies have in their parents, the certainty that I would protect him from any harm. I think we should go, I said calmly, putting Noah back in the stroller. Don't be dramatic, Evan, Natalie replied, returning to her chair. It was just a little tap to teach him boundaries. A little tap. I repeated, my voice still controlled. You kicked a baby. You're overreacting as usual, my father interjected. Natalie just showed him where his place is. As I gathered Noah's things and prepared to leave, I noticed something interesting. The security camera system I had installed for my parents the previous year, because Natalie insisted they needed modern protection, was flashing discreetly in the corner of the room. All the cameras were active, recording. They had no idea, but they had just perfectly documented the child abuse they had committed. And I, as the technician who installed the system, had remote access to all the recordings. If you're enjoying this family justice story, don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Smell for more gripping tales of standing up for what's right. Because while they thought I was running away defeated once again, I was already mentally cataloging every frame of that recording and planning how to use that evidence in the most devastating way possible. The real lesson about boundaries was just beginning. And this time, it would be Natalie learning where hers were. On the drive home, Noah finally stopped crying in the back seat. But the red mark on his little arm remained vivid as a reminder of what had happened. I pulled into the first parking lot I could find and called my ex-wife, Lauren. Evan, what happened? Lauren answered on the second ring, her voice immediately concerned. Your sister kicked Noah, I said bluntly. During lunch at my parents' house. The silence on the other end of the line lasted for what felt like an eternity. Lauren and I had ended our marriage on friendly terms after she admitted she wasn't ready for motherhood, but she still loved Noah deeply. She did what? The disbelief in her voice was palpable. Evan, are you serious? Completely. He was crying because he was hungry, and she got up from the table and kicked his stroller. My parents applauded her. Jesus Christ, Lauren muttered. Have you taken him to the doctor? I'm heading to the emergency room right now, I replied, glancing at Noah in the rearview mirror. There's just a red mark, but I want to be sure. To fully understand what happened today, you need to know my family. Natalie has always been the perfect child in my parents' eyes. She graduated magna cum laude from law school, became a junior partner at Preston and Associates before the age of 30, and married Dr. Ryan Carter, a renowned plastic surgeon. She drove a Mercedes convertible, lived in a Manhattan penthouse that was featured in Architectural Digest, and had a social calendar that included charity galas and high society New York events. I, on the other hand, was the problem child who never lived up to their expectations. With a degree in computer science from a state university, I worked as a senior technician at a cybersecurity firm. I lived in Queens, drove a Honda Civic, and my greatest social achievement was being a single father. The disparity in treatment started early. When Natalie broke her neighbor's computer at age 12, my parents paid for a new one and said, "Accidents happen." When I got a perfect score on the MIT entrance exam, they said one swallow doesn't make a summer and that I needed to prove consistency. Natalie could come home at 3 a.m. at 16 and get a, "Take care, sweetie." I came home 10 minutes after curfew and lost my allowance for a month. The difference in treatment intensified when Noah was born. Natalie, still childless after 6 years of marriage, constantly questioned my parenting decisions. "Don't you think you're being too permissive? Kids need structure, Evan." In my day, babies didn't dictate the family schedule. My parents backed her up with every criticism. When Noah cried during last Christmas, my father muttered about lack of discipline. My mother suggested that I might not be cut out to be a single father. Today was no different. We arrived for our monthly lunch, a tradition I had kept up hoping Noah would get to know his paternal family. Normal baby behavior was treated as a personal offense. "You can't even control a baby," Natalie had commented as Noah cried. "How do you expect to raise a child without proper family structure?" "He's hungry," I had explained patiently. "Babies cry when they have needs." "So babies cry," she had retorted. "Well-behaved babies wait." It was my mother who suggested, "Maybe you should consider hiring a professional nanny, Evan. Someone with real experience in child-rearing." What they didn't know, and I never mentioned, was that Noah was an exceptionally calm child for his age. Our pediatrician, Dr. Lucas Grant, constantly praised his easy temperament and healthy development. But at my parents' house, every sound Noah made was amplified as if it were a public disturbance. They treated his presence as a tolerated inconvenience, not a visit from their only grandson. The situation came to a head when Natalie got up from the table. I thought she was going to the bathroom or answering a phone call. She always made a point of showing how important her job was. Instead, she walked directly over to the stroller where Noah was lying, staring at the ceiling with that innocent curiosity babies have for lights and shadows. The kick was deliberate, calculated, hard enough to move the stroller and send Noah crashing into the safety bar. "There," she said, turning to me with satisfaction. "Now he has something real to cry about." My father clapped slowly. Finally, someone with authority. My mother didn't even look up from her magazine. "Children need to learn boundaries early. Evan, you should thank your sister." As I drove to the hospital, I remembered a conversation I had had with Lauren a few months earlier. She had asked me why I insisted on taking Noah to these family lunches when I always came home frustrated. "He deserves to know his family," I had replied, "even if it's complicated." "Family isn't who you share your blood with," Lauren had said. "Family is who protects you, supports you, loves you unconditionally." From the sounds of it, these people do the opposite. Now, looking at my 8-month-old son in the back seat with a red mark on his arm from crying when he was hungry, I finally understood what Lauren meant. But what my family didn't know was that I was no longer the shy boy who quietly accepted their criticism and belittlement. I was a father now, and fathers protect their children. They also didn't know that the security system I had installed in their house recorded everything in high definition with crystal clear audio. And I had remote access to all the recordings. What happened today wasn't just a moment of discipline as they believed. It was documented child abuse. And I was already planning exactly how to use this evidence to ensure that no one would ever hurt my son again. The real education about boundaries was just beginning. And this time, it would be Natalie and my parents learning the consequences of their actions. At the hospital, Dr. Samuel Torres examined Noah carefully while I explained what had happened. The red mark on his little arm was still vivid, and Noah cried whenever anyone approached him too quickly. "Fortunately, there are no signs of fracture or internal injury," Dr. Samuel Torres said, adjusting his glasses. "But this mark is consistent with impact trauma. I need to document this in the chart." "Document?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Hospital protocol for possible child abuse. I'll need to contact social services." 2 hours later, I was being interviewed by social worker Emily Foster, a woman in her 40s with kind but determined eyes. "Mr. Bennett, I understand that a family member caused this injury," she asked, taking notes. "My sister kicked his stroller because he was crying during lunch." My parents applauded her. Emily stopped writing and looked at me directly. They applauded? They said it was necessary discipline, that babies need to learn boundaries. 8-month-old babies don't have the cognitive capacity to understand discipline, she replied, returning to her notes. That's basic knowledge about child development. When we got home, my phone was already blowing up with messages. Natalie had found out I'd been to the hospital. You're pathetic, Evan. Taking a baby to the hospital for a minor correction. You've always been a drama queen. My father was more direct. You're embarrassing this family. Stop this nonsense immediately. My mother opted for emotional manipulation. Your poor father is having heart palpitations because of your behavior. Do you want to kill your own father? I blocked all their numbers and called Lauren. How is he? She asked immediately. Physically fine. Emotionally, he's going to need time, I replied, watching Noah sleep restlessly in his crib. Evan, you need to protect our son. That family is toxic. I know. And I will. What are you planning to do? I explained about the security footage. Lauren was silent for a long moment. Do you have everything recorded? The kick, their comments? Every second, high-definition video and audio. My God, Evan. That's criminal evidence. The next morning, while Noah played on the living room rug, I received an unexpected call. It was Ryan, Natalie's husband. Evan, I need to talk to you in person. About what? About what happened yesterday, and about other things you need to know. We met at a cafe downtown. Ryan looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes and his hands shaking slightly. She told me her version of what happened, Ryan began. She said you were exaggerating, that it was just a little tap to calm the baby down. Ryan. She kicked my son's stroller. He hit the rail and got a bruise. Ryan closed his eyes. I know. I believe you. Why? Because she did something similar to me. Not physically, but, he paused, struggling for the words. When we disagree, she has outbursts. She breaks things. Last week, she threw a vase at the wall because I forgot to confirm dinner with her partners. A piece of the puzzle fell into place in my mind. How long has this been going on? Since we got married, but it got worse when she became a partner at the firm. The power went to her head. Why are you telling me this? Ryan looked at me directly. Because when I saw the photos of Noah's arm that your ex-wife posted on Facebook, I knew I had to do something. Children don't deserve this. Did she see the photos? Yes. She was furious. She said you were defaming her, that she would sue for libel. That was the moment my decision was completely made. It was no longer just about protecting Noah. It was about stopping Natalie from hurting other people. Ryan, would you be willing to testify about her behavior? Testify where? If necessary, in court. Or to other people who need to know who she really is. Ryan hesitated for just a second. Yes. Yes, I would. That night, after putting Noah to bed, I sat down at my computer and accessed my parents' home security system. The recordings were all there, organized by date and time. I downloaded the file from the previous Sunday. 5 hours of footage that included our arrival, lunch, and the incident. I watched it all again. The video quality was perfect. The audio captured every word that was said. The look of pleasure on Natalie's face after kicking the stroller. My parents' cruel laughter. Noah's desperate crying. But it also captured something I hadn't noticed at the time. The moment Natalie got up from the table, she looked directly at one of the cameras and smiled. She knew she was being filmed. She wanted it documented. That realization changed everything. It wasn't a moment of impulsive anger. It was calculated, premeditated. She wanted me to see it, to feel powerless against the family system that had always protected her. I called my cousin Dylan, who works as an investigative journalist at the New York Times. Dylan, I need your professional help. What happened, Evan? I told him everything. I sent him an edited copy of the recording via secure email. Jesus Christ, Evan. That's documented child abuse. I know, but I need it to have the maximum impact. I don't just want her to face legal consequences. I want everyone to know who she really is. Are you sure about this? Once it's out there, there's no taking it back. I looked over at Noah sleeping in his room, still making little noises of discomfort even in his sleep. Absolutely certain. Then let's do this right, Dylan said. I'm going to need more information about her career, professional connections, organizations where she has standing. I spent the next 2 hours compiling everything I knew about Natalie's public life, her most famous cases at the law firm, her political connections, her board seats on charitable organizations. Dylan was right. Once this went public, there would be no turning back. But as I looked at the photos of my son's bruised arm, I knew this was exactly what needed to happen. Natalie had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. And now she would find out that actions have consequences, even for the golden children of the Bennett family. The plan was taking shape, and it would be more comprehensive than she could ever imagine. Over the next 3 days, I turned my queen's apartment into a command center. Noah played on the rug while I meticulously organized every piece of evidence against Natalie, spreading documents across the kitchen table like a detective building a case. Dylan had been clear about what we needed to make the story irrefutable. It's not enough to have the recording of the kick, he explained during our phone call. We need a pattern, documentation of consistent abusive behavior. Ryan became an unexpected source of information. During our second meeting, he brought a folder with medical records, photos of broken objects in his home, and even audio recordings he had secretly made during Natalie's outbursts. She threw a plate at my head last week, Ryan revealed, showing me a photo of a cut above his eyebrow. She said it was because I didn't defend her properly when her boss criticized a report. Why did you document all this? I asked, impressed by the meticulous organization. Because I'm a doctor. I recognize patterns of abuse when I see them. And I knew that one day I would need to prove what was going on. My strategy was multi-pronged. First, Dylan would publish an investigative article in the New York Times on domestic violence among elite professionals, using Natalie as the main case study. Second, I would send the recordings to the New York State Bar Association's disciplinary council. Third, I would share the material with charities where Natalie held prestigious positions. But I needed more. Natalie was smart, well-connected, and had the resources to control narratives. She would try to discredit any evidence as manipulation by a jealous brother. That's when I remembered something crucial. Natalie had applied to be appointed a state judge, a process that had been underway for 6 months. The appointment depended on the governor's approval and a rigorous background review. I called my former constitutional law professor, Dr. Eleanor Hayes, who now worked as a consultant on judicial appointments. "Evan, what a surprise to hear your voice," she said warmly. "I hear you have a son now. Congratulations." "Thank you, Dr. Hayes. Actually, I'm calling about something related to my son and my sister." I explained the situation without mentioning my specific plan. I just asked about the criteria for evaluating judicial appointments. "Moral character is paramount," she explained. "Any evidence of violent or abusive behavior is an immediate disqualifier." "Why do you ask?" "Just academic curiosity," I lied. "Thanks for the information." The third element of the strategy came from an unexpected source. Noah was playing in the park when I ran into Claire, the mother of one of the children in the daycare. "Are you Natalie Bennett's brother?" she asked, recognizing the last name when I introduced myself. "Yes, why?" "She was my ex-sister-in-law's lawyer in a custody case. Completely unethical, fabricated evidence, intimidated witnesses, cost my ex-sister-in-law custody of her children." "Do you have documentation of that?" "Of course, I kept everything in the hope that one day I could do something about it." Claire became my fourth source. Her documentation included emails where Natalie clearly violated ethical standards of the profession, manipulating witnesses and distorting evidence. As I built the case, Natalie went about her normal life, seemingly convinced that the incident with Noah had been forgotten. She even posted on Facebook about the importance of child discipline in modern society. Ryan sent me screenshots. "She has no idea what's coming," he commented. "My parents tried to contact me several times, alternating between threats and pleas. My mother left a tearful message. You're destroying this family over a misunderstanding, Evan. Natalie just wanted to help with Noah's education." My father was more direct. "Stop this nonsense now, or you're out of the will." "Definitely." I didn't respond to any of the messages. I was too busy orchestrating Natalie's downfall. Dylan worked with me on the perfect timeline. "We need to coordinate all the revelations," he explained. "First, the Times article comes out, setting the stage. 24 hours later, the material goes to the disciplinary board. 48 hours later, it goes to the Judicial Nomination Committee. 72 hours later, all charitable organizations receive copies." "Why that specific sequence?" I asked. "Because each revelation will build on the previous one. When the last domino falls, there will be no way for her to control the narrative." During that week of preparation, I noticed changes in Noah. He was less anxious, sleeping better. Dr. Lucas Grant, our pediatrician, confirmed that the red mark had disappeared, but recommended that we continue to avoid stressful situations. "Babies are more resilient than we think," he said. "But they're also more sensitive to environmental stresses. Keep him in safe, loving environments." This only strengthened my resolve. Noah would never again be around Natalie or any member of her family who tolerated child abuse. The final piece of the puzzle came when Ryan called me on a Thursday night. "Evan, you need to know. Natalie is planning to sue you for defamation. She's hired a private investigator to find dirt on you. What can they find? I asked, genuinely curious. Nothing significant. You pay your bills. You take good care of Noah. You have no criminal record, but she's desperate to find something she can use against you. That's perfect, I replied, surprising Ryan. Perfect? How? Because it means she knows she's vulnerable. Confident people don't hire private investigators. If you're following this journey of a father protecting his son, be sure to subscribe to Revenge Smell to see how this carefully planned strategy unfolded. On the eve of the plan's execution, I reviewed each element one last time. I found no flaws, only the crystal clear understanding that after the next sunrise, there would be no turning back. Natalie had kicked my son, thinking she could get away with it, protected by the family system that had always shielded her from the consequences of her actions. But systems can be hacked, and I was, after all, a systems expert. What she didn't know was that her attempt to sue me for defamation would be the final catalyst that would make the entire operation not only justifiable but necessary. Tomorrow, Natalie Bennett would discover that some actions have consequences that echo far beyond the living room of one's parents' house. Monday, 7 a.m, Dylan's article went live on the New York Times website under the headline, "Domestic Violence Among the Elite, When Prestigious Professionals Abuse Children." I was feeding Noah breakfast when my phone exploded with notifications. The first name on my missed calls list was Natalie. "You've ruined my life," she screamed when I answered. "Do you know what you've done? My office is being bombarded with calls. My picture is on the front page of the country's most important newspaper." "Interesting," I replied calmly, watching Noah play with his toys. "You're nervous about the calls, but not about kicking a baby. That's not how it happened, and you know it. I have everything recorded, Natalie. Video and audio. Do you want me to play the part where you say Noah had something real to cry about?" The silence on the other end of the line lasted 15 seconds. When she spoke again, her voice was different, calculated. "That's blackmail, Evan. You could go to jail for that. Blackmail would be if I were asking for money. I'm just sharing the truth with people who have a right to know." Dylan had done a brilliant job. The article not only documented the incident with Noah but contextualized it within a larger pattern of family abuse among elite professionals. It included Ryan's statements about Natalie's domestic behavior, Claire's documentation of ethical irregularities in custody cases, and even comments from anonymous colleagues about angry outbursts in a professional environment. At 9 a.m, I got a call from an unknown number. "Mr. Bennett, this is Linda Harper from the Bar Association's Disciplinary Council. I'd like to schedule a conversation about some allegations that have come to our attention." "Sure, I'm available whenever you need me. How about today at 2? We understand you have video evidence." At 10 a.m, Ryan called me, his voice shaking. "Evan, she's out of control. She broke all the glasses in the kitchen and is screaming that she's going to sue you, the newspaper, and anyone who believes her story. Are you safe? I'm at my sister's house. But I have to warn you, she's hired a famous lawyer, Nathan Reed. He specializes in high-profile defamation cases." "That's interesting," I replied, taking notes. "Because suing for defamation would require her to prove that the information is false, and it's not." "Exactly." At 11 a.m, I received an email from the Protected Childhood Foundation where Natalie had served on the board for 3 years. "After careful review of the recent allegations, we have decided to suspend Ms. Bennett's participation in all foundation activities effective immediately." At 11:30, Dr. Eleanor Hayes called me. "Evan, I just read the article. Are you sure you want to go down this road?" "I'm absolutely sure because if this is true, and from what I've read it seems completely documented, it destroys any chance of Natalie's judicial appointment. The governor can't afford to appoint someone with this kind of controversy." "That's exactly the point. My God, Evan, you planned this methodically." "I planned it to protect my son and to protect other children who could be her victims in the future." By 2 o'clock, I was at the Bar Association headquarters with a high-resolution copy of the complete recording. Linda Harper watched the video twice, taking detailed notes. "Mr. Bennett, this is very disturbing. We have cases of inappropriate conduct, but physical violence against a child," she paused, removing her glasses. "This is completely different territory." "There are other documented cases of unethical behavior," I offered, handing her the folder Claire had compiled. Linda leafed through the documents, her expression growing more serious with each page. "Fabrication of evidence, witness intimidation, violation of client-attorney confidentiality," she muttered. "Mr. Bennett, with your permission, we would like to open a formal investigation immediately. You have my full cooperation." At 3 o'clock, as I was driving home, I received a call from a private number. Evan, the voice was familiar, but it took me a few seconds to recognize it. It was my mother, and she was crying. Evan, your father is in the hospital. He had a heart attack after he saw the paper. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt, but then I remembered his laughter when Natalie kicked Noah. Is he going to be all right? The doctors say he will. But Evan, she paused. I know you're angry, but this has gone too far. You're destroying the whole family. I haven't destroyed anything, Mom. I just revealed what was already there. Natalie is devastated. She could lose her job, lose everything. And what do you think she should lose after kicking a baby? My mother was silent for a long time. I don't know what to think anymore. Then maybe it's time to start thinking. At 5 o'clock, Dylan called me with an update. The article has over 200,000 shares. We're getting hundreds of comments from people sharing similar experiences of normalized family abuse. And the professional reaction? 3 major law firms have already issued statements distancing themselves from Natalie. Her firm has been in crisis meeting since noon. At 6 o'clock, as I was feeding Noah dinner, my doorbell rang. I looked out the window and saw Natalie standing at my door, visibly disheveled, her clothes rumpled and her hair uncombed. I opened the door, but kept the chain on. You did it, she said, her voice shaking. You really did destroy me. I didn't destroy you, Natalie. You destroyed yourself when you decided to kick my son. He was making too much noise. He's a baby. Babies make noise. You don't understand. I was stressed. Work, marriage, the pressure. And you took it out on an 8-month-old child? Natalie leaned her forehead against the door. My marriage is over. Ryan filed for divorce this morning. My office is considering firing me. The judgeship, it's gone. I'm glad Ryan got out in time. He said I'm just like Dad. That I have the same explosive temper, the same lack of control. You do. I can change, she said, looking at me through the crack. I can go to therapy, get rehab, but I need you to stop this. I can't stop something that's already out of my control. The truth has a life of its own now. Please, Evan, I'm your sister. Sisters don't hurt baby nephews. Noah began to cry in the apartment behind me. Natalie made an instinctive move toward the sound, but I blocked the door completely. You're never going to get near my son again, I said firmly. Never again. Natalie backed away, her tears finally spilling over. I didn't want it to come to this. Then you shouldn't have kicked a child. I closed the door and locked all the locks. Through the window, I watched Natalie stand on the sidewalk for nearly 10 minutes before finally getting into her car and driving away. At 8 o'clock, I received an email from Preston and Associates. Natalie had been placed on indefinite administrative leave pending an internal investigation. At 9 o'clock, Ryan called me. Evan, she's saying she's going to kill herself, that she has nothing left to live for. Do you think she means it? I don't know, but I thought I should let you know. Ryan, you did the right thing divorcing her. Don't let her use emotional blackmail to manipulate you back into it. I know. Just be careful, okay? Desperate people do unpredictable things. That night, after putting Noah to bed, I sat in the living room of our apartment and took stock of what had happened in just one day. The New York Times article had been shared more than 300,000 times. The video of the assault, though Noah's face had been blurred to protect his privacy, was being used in discussions about child abuse across the country. Natalie had lost her position on the charity board, been suspended from work, lost her marriage, and her nomination for the bench had been withdrawn. But more important than all of that, Noah was safe, and other children would be safe from Natalie in the future. As I checked my last notifications of the day, one message caught my eye. It was from a woman named Vanessa Cruz. Mr. Bennett, I'm an investigative journalist with CNN. I would like to talk to you about the possibility of a television interview. We believe your story could help other families facing similar situations. I smiled for the first time in weeks. The real transformation was just beginning. Natalie had kicked my son, thinking it was the end of the story. In fact, it was just the beginning of a new narrative, one where children are protected, and abusers face real consequences. What she would discover in the next few hours would make everything that had happened so far seem like just the warm-up. 6 months later, I was in the kitchen of our new apartment, a bigger, safer place I was able to buy with my promotion, when I got the final call from Dylan. Evan, it's over. The disciplinary board has permanently revoked Natalie's license to practice law in the state of New York. Noah was in his high chair, clapping happily as he ate his fruit. No longer was he the anxious baby who cried when he heard loud male voices. What about the criminal case? I asked, watching my son play fearlessly. She took a plea bargain. 200 hours of community service, mandatory anger management therapy, and she's barred from working with children for the next 5 years. Ryan had become an unexpected ally after the divorce. He called me the week before with an update that surprised me. "Evan, she's in serious treatment. I don't know if it's genuine or just to impress the judge, but for the first time in years, she's admitted she has a problem." "That doesn't undo what she did to Noah," I replied. "No, it doesn't undo it, but maybe it will prevent it from happening to other children." The CNN interview had aired 3 months earlier. Vanessa Cruz had done an exceptional job focusing not only on our story but on the broader pattern of normalized child abuse in dysfunctional families. The impact was immense. I received hundreds of messages from other parents sharing similar experiences. Many found the courage to confront family members who had normalized violence against children. My parents never apologized directly, but my mother began visiting me weekly. She watched Noah with an expression I had never seen before, something between regret and protection. "I didn't realize it at the time," she said during a recent visit. "When you were little, I thought that was how you raised children. My mother did the same thing to me." "Patterns can be broken," I replied, watching Noah teach my mother how to stack colored blocks. "But someone has to decide that they stop here." My father still didn't speak to me, but I learned through Ryan that he had donated a significant amount of money to child protection organizations, his silent way of acknowledging his mistake. Natalie tried to contact me only once after the sentence. It was a long email full of justifications and pleas for forgiveness. It ended with a sentence that stuck with me. "I became everything I swore I would fight against when I became a lawyer." I didn't respond. Forgiveness is a gift you give when you're ready, not when it's asked for. What surprised me most was how the experience transformed my own perspective on fatherhood. Before, I navigated Noah's upbringing with constant anxiety, always questioning whether I was doing it right. Now I knew with absolute certainty that my job as a father was to protect him, respect him, and teach him that his voice matters, that he should never accept being diminished or hurt by anyone, especially family. Dr. Lucas Grant, our pediatrician, noticed the change during our routine checkup. "Noah is blossoming," he observed, watching my son explore the office with confident curiosity. "Children who grow up knowing they are protected develop a more solid sense of self-worth." "He knows I'll always be there for him," I replied. "That makes all the difference in the world." The most powerful lesson came from an unexpected source. During a family therapy session my mother had suggested, the therapist asked a simple question that changed my perspective. "Evan, what do you want Noah to remember about how you responded when he needed protection?" The answer was immediate. That I never hesitated, that he always knew he could count on me, even when it meant standing up to the whole family. Today, Noah is a year and a half old. He runs around the house, laughs loudly, and sings songs he makes up. When he cries, I comfort him without rushing. When he needs boundaries, I set them gently, never with violence. He will never know the details of what his aunt did, but he will grow up knowing that he was protected when he needed it. The latest update on Natalie came from Dylan. She had gotten a job as a consultant at an organization that helps professionals rehabilitate after losing their licenses. The irony was unintentional but perhaps appropriate. "She seems different," Dylan commented. "Calmer, less arrogant." "People can change," I replied. "But change doesn't erase consequences." If this story touched you, especially if you are a parent, subscribe to Revenge Smell for more stories about the importance of protecting our children, even when it means confronting our own family. Because in the end, it doesn't matter how many relationships you have to sacrifice or how many family traditions you have to break. When a child needs protection, you protect them. It's that simple. Natalie kicked my son, thinking she could get away with it, protected by a family system that had always shielded her from consequences. She learned that some systems can be hacked, and that some consequences echo forever. Noah is safe, confident, and growing up in a home where his voice is celebrated, not silenced. And me? Well, I've discovered that parenting isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to do what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard.